My tutorial lesson was on adding fractions using unlike denominators, since that can be tricky when learning fractions. And the student I taught is in 4th grade, and he is a gifted student, meaning that he is learning 5th grade math. So the objective I had was that he will be able to add fractions using unlike denominators. So for the vocabulary, obviously denominator was in it, and least common multiple. The materials that were used was a whiteboard marker, and manipulatives. So before we started the lesson, we reviewed multiplication facts and least common multiples and how to find it. So I explained beforehand that when adding fractions, if they are the same denominator, then they are like fractions. If they have different denominators, then they are unlike fractions. And that you have to have like fractions before you're able to add them. So the example I used with when we did it together, we did that Aaron had 1/3 cup of orange juice with 1/4 cup of pineapple juice. How much juice was mixed all together? So with the manipulatives, or with the whiteboard, I had the student demonstrate what 1/3 looked like and what 1/4 looked like. And I had the student demonstrate if it was going to be if it is a unlike fraction or like fraction. They came to the conclusion that it is a unlike fraction. So they have to make sure that they get to the same common denominator. So with 1/3 and 1/4, I had the student find the least common multiple of 3 and 4. For 3, the student did 3, 6, 9, 12 as shown. And for 4, 4, 8, 12. So the student came to the conclusion of 12. I made sure because that is the answer. So for the factor of 3, it took 4 times to get there. And so 3 times 4 would make it 12. For the factor of 4, it took 3 times to get there. So that is 4 times 3, leaving the combinator to be 12. And I told the student whatever you do to the denominator needs to be done to the numerator as well. So 1/3 turned into 4/12 because 1 times 4, and 1/4 turned into 3/12, which became 1 times 3. Once there is a common denominator and the numerator has been changed, then you can go ahead and add those fractions together. So the new problem that the student and I did together was 4/12 plus 3/12 equals 7/12. We did not reduce this because there was no need for it to be reduced, but in the future, if it needs to be reduced, then go ahead and do so. So to check for understanding, I asked the student why it's necessary to have a common denominator before adding fractions. Then I gave the child the worksheet. For an ELL learner, because there's lots of them in the classroom that I'm interning in, I would use lots of visuals to help them understand what those fractions would look like. So, the student did this first problem all on their own after we did the example together. So we have 3/4 plus 1/16. As you can see, the student circled 4 and 16 knowing that they have to get to a common denominator, so the student wrote out 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, and stop because they knew 16, it would match up. So they did 3 times 4 equals 12, and they did 1 times 1, meaning that they knew that 1/16 would be the same. So 12 over 16 plus 1 over 16, they came with 13 over 16. They did not reduce because there was no need to, so I was very impressed with their work. For a moment, when doing this problem, the student I noticed became stumped, because they already noticed that the denominators were already common. They were both 11. So the student wasn't really sure what to do, and I said, just go ahead and add, and they're like, oh, of course. So 9 11ths plus 1 11th equal 10 11ths. And there was no need to be reducing now. So this is telling me that the student is understanding so far. After doing the problems with the student in my personal reflection, I stated that during this I allowed the student to use the manipulatives, and they did so, and I noticed that helped a lot with the student to have a better understanding of what they need to do. During this lesson as well, I did not use technology at all, But if I were to use technology, I would have the students use what they call MegaMath, which is what they use in their school system. That way they can have visuals more so, and they can play games to make it more fun for them, because when you turn something into a game, it clicks better for students. The only struggle that I saw with the student was that when it already had like fractions, they didn't know what to do. They froze up because they were used to doing unlike fractions. But for the most part, this student did very well, and there was very little that I had to help them on to tutor-wise. So overall, this is a very well lesson, and the student did very well understanding. So